The purpose of this presentation is to review medical conditions that can be treated with homeopathy. My name is Rusty Owenbrink. I'm a board-certified osteopathic family physician who has been practicing as an integrative physician for over a decade. Homeopathy is a school of medicine that's based on the law of similars. Samuel Hahnemann devised this school of medicine over 200 years ago. He was a German physician. The term homeopathy comes from the Greek words homeo, which means similar, and pathos, for disease. Dr. Hahnemann's basic fundamental premise was that like treats like. If you have a fever, by taking something that can cause a fever in a very, very dilute dose, a small dose, the fever will resolve. The other fundamental premise is that the weaker the remedy, the stronger the effect it will have on the body. These remedies seem to work on the same order of concentration within the body as cytokines, or chemical messengers that act between adjacent cells within a relatively close proximity. Remedies can come from plant, mineral, or animal sources. They're produced by Dr. Hahnemann's dilution principles. A common dilution would be 1 to 100, 1 drop of substance to 99 drops of water, alcohol, or some other elixir. It can be further diluted by putting 1 drop of this substance into another 99 or 999, whatever the volume, to come up with a greater dilution, stronger effect form of a remedy. These remedies are then potentized by succession, or tapping the vial on a hard surface for a specified length of time to bring the effect out of the remedy and transfer it into the solvent. Frequently, the term vibrations will be used to describe some of these elixirs, with the theory that there's so little of the substance there, it's just some type of a molecular vibration that resolves in the remedy, and that's what actually causes the effect. The common dilutions for these remedies are 10, 100, or 1,000-fold, as described by the Roman numerals X, C, and M. 6x is the lowest potency, 1m or more is the highest potency. The dose of these medications would be 2 to 4 globules on the tongue or under the tongue. They are not swallowed. They can also be used topically. For instance, an inflamed joint arthritis can be treated with topical preparations such as arnica. It's almost impossible to overdose on these medications. There are very rare side effects or adverse effects due to the very, very low concentration of these active agents. The remedies can be taken every 30 to 60 minutes for up to 10 doses as needed. They're to be taken once daily at bedtime for chronic illnesses. If symptoms are worse at a particular time of day, do not take the medicine at that time. Avoid food or fluids for 15 minutes after taking a remedy. Any improvement in an acute disease should begin within hours. Discontinue once a 50% improvement occurs unless symptoms recur. If no improvement occurs after 10 doses, see a physician. If symptoms worsen, this is known as homeopathic aggravation, stop the remedy and then resume after the worsening improves or resolves. Homeopathic remedies can act in the body for prolonged periods of time. They do not need to be taken after considerable improvement has occurred. If improvement seems to come to a standstill at a later date, then the remedy can be resumed. Storage of remedies. Remedies should be stored in a cool place away from direct sunlight or strong odors. They have an indefinite shelf life. They don't expire. They've been kept in vials for decades without any loss of potency or effect. However, one should never transfer a remedy from one bottle to another. As a disclaimer, I'd like to point out that I am an osteopathic physician. I am not a classical homeopath. I've reviewed the literature and I'm presenting what the literature presents in terms of the remedies, what they're supposed to do, and how they're used. I have very limited personal experience with them. I have self-treated mild conditions with them, and I have found them to be effective. These may be tried, and they often provide relief for mild problems. Any severe pain or problem should be evaluated by a competent physician, however. The following is a review of symptoms and illnesses that may be helped homeopathically, organized by physical symptoms or disorder. Abdominal pain and colic, the indication. Sudden agonizing grip and pain in the abdomen, colicky in nature. Treatment, Colocynth 30. This is good for very severe agonizing abdominal pain, usually in the evening between 4 and 9 in the evening. It occurs in spasms. The patient bends forward and twists, trying to get relief. Passing gas from either end helps. Dysphoria 30. For violent colic, indigestion, and regular spasms, worse from bending or lying down, better of standing or bending backwards. Mag-Phos. For severe, unbearable abdominal pain that comes in spasms, the victim loosens the clothes, bends forward. Passing gas does not provide relief. Abdominal heat or massage helps. Mag-Phos should be used only when Colocynth fails. Plumbum 30. This is for excessive pain from indigestion and obstinate constipation, starting at the navel and then spreading in all directions. Take a few pills every 10 to 15 minutes until the pain resolves. If no improvement after 10 doses, see a physician. Acidity or heartburn is next. The indication for this is excessive intake of non-vegetarian spicy or fried foods or mental tension. This heartburn may precede an ulcer. The first choice of treatment would be Robinia 30. This is for severe burning pain in the stomach, with also pain in the forehead, intensely sour burping, vomitous, stool, and whole body odor and taste. The remedy of first choice would be the remedy of first choice for treatment of acidity. Argentinium nitricum 30 is a silver nitrate derivative. It's used for burning stomach pain with severe belching, flatulence, a sensation of a splinter in the stomach. Cravings for sugar and salt exist, but sweets can cause diarrhea, which can also, of course, be caused by anxiety. Carbaveg 30 is good for acidity from excess consumption of alcohol, coffee, meat, and fish, causing sour or rancid burping with large amounts of abdominal gas. Notes: a bland diet should be consumed. Stop the medicine once there's a 50% improvement. Restart the remedy if symptoms recur. If there's no relief, please consult a physician. Agalactia is a condition where there's inadequate breast milk. The treatment for this, first choice, would be Agnus 30. This is good for a patient who has great sadness and thinks that she will die. Asafoetida 30 is for full breasts with no milk production. There will frequently be a pulsation in the pit of the stomach and flatulence. Milk will flow if the breast is pressed. However, warm applications to the breast are not successful. Agnata 30 for patients with emotional distress, a strong aversion to tobacco and coffee, and a sinking sensation in the stomach relieved with deep breathing. Frequently there will be long involuntary sighing. Lacanium 30 for swelling and erratic breast pain, alternating sides, and despondency. Stop the remedy once there's a 50% improvement. You can resume the remedy if there is a recurrence or worsening of the condition. Anal fissure. This is indicated for a painful linear crack in the anus associated with constipation, blood in or on the stool, on the toilet paper, and sharp pain. Frequently, the fissure will be on the posterior aspect of the anal canal. Treatment: Graphites 30 is good for straining associated with facial flushing, a sad nature, somebody who tends to weep when they hear music. Nitric acid 30 is good for those with a sensation of an anal splinter, offensive fluid or blood passage, and a tendency for loose emotions. Rutania 30 for folks who have a sensation of anal constriction, burning, fissure, pain, persisting long after evacuation, temporarily relieved by cold applications. Avoid constipation with an anal fissure. Stop medication once there's a 50% improvement. Resume if it's needed later. If no relief, seek medical help. Appetite disorders. For loss of appetite, also known as anorexia. Treatment: Carbaveg 30. This is for anorexia from long-standing disease, indigestion, flatulence. The stomach will feel full and heavy. Ignatia 30. For grief following an unpleasant incident with excessive consumption of stimulants, tea, coffee. Compare this to Nux vomica. Long involuntary sighing with constipation and intolerance of tobacco will frequently be found in people who would benefit from this remedy. Lycopodium 30 for folks with constipation and flatulence, frequent belching, and desire for sweet and warm drinks and foods. Nux vomica 30 is good for those with an irregular sedentary lifestyle and excessive intake of stimulants, an oversensitive nature, and a tendency to catch colds. Frequently there will be an ineffective desire to pass stool. Stop the remedy when you're 50% or more better, resume if needed, or if no relief after 10 doses, please consult a physician. Asthma. Asthma is a difficult condition to treat homeopathically. There will be shortness of breath. Seek medical help immediately if there's inadequate relief. The first one we'll start with, the first remedy will be antimonium tart 30. This is from asthma with cold, humid weather. Typically, the attacks will occur around 3 a.m., compelling the patient to sit up and seek open air. There will be a loud rattling sound from the chest, while coughing, but without mucus production, will be present. The face will turn pale and blue with a cold sweat. There is an irresistible desire to sleep despite the respiratory distress. Arsenic 30 is good for those who have asthma after consuming cold drinks and food, usually worse between 12 and 2 in the morning. They're unable to lie down. They must sit forward, bending forward, with pain around the upper third of the right lung. There will be extreme crustation or exhaustion with fear of death. Carboveg 30 is a remedy used for folks who have asthma after eating salted meat or fish. Frequently there will be an associated spasmodic cough with gagging and vomiting. Copious cold sweat on the face and body, fanning themselves, will also be present. This may be a life-saving remedy when the person seems to be collapsing or sinking from the severe attack. Ipecacuanha 30 is good for asthma attacks that happen in winter, preceded by severe nausea and vomiting. There will be violent constriction of the throat and chest, a dry cough, and persistent nausea, unrelieved by vomiting and thirstlessness. Nux vomica is good for those who have an attack of asthma within a short period after a digestive upset. Often it will last from midnight until the morning hours. There will be shallow, oppressive breathing, dry cough, and a bursting headache with gripping stomach pain, and also a frequent ineffective desire to move the bowels. Asthma is one of the most difficult conditions to treat homeopathically. If there's no relief, please seek medical help immediately. Backache. This is for lumbago, or back pain, sciatica, which would be pain going down the leg, one leg, the other, or both, and also pain in the lower spine. The first choice of treatment will be aconite 30. This is good for those who have sudden violent attacks of back pain with restlessness, acute fear as if they were going to die. They toss about in agony and are unable to bear the slightest touch or pressure. Aesculus 30. For those with fairly constant pain in the lumbosacral region, it's worse with walking or stooping, but better from resting and sitting. Bryonia 30, for those who have very severe back pain, worse with the slightest movement of the body. The victim will want to stay absolutely still. Gentle massage and heat will help. Chamomilla 30, for those with acute pain with numbness and mental irritability. This is worse with dry heat. However, cold will relieve the pain. Simicifuga 30 is good for those with excessive muscular soreness and ache in the whole back, especially the lumbar or lower back area, from sitting for prolonged periods. It can be relieved by massaging or moving about and walking. Colocin 30 can be used with those with left-sided sciatica, lightning-like pain that starts in the back, spreading to the left leg, usually down the back of the left leg. Partial relief may come from firm pressure and massage, heat, and also lying on the left side, possibly in the knee-chest position. Calicarb 30 is good for backache during pregnancy or after an abortion. It's worse at night and in the morning and relieved by warmth. Rust Hox is a derivative of poison ivy, and this is better for stiffness, soreness, and pain after rest or inactivity, but gradually diminishes as rest ends and with moving about. Dry heat will also help this. Ruta 30 for back pain and strain due to the back ligaments from unaccustomed exertion or incorrect lifting technique. It's worse after inactivity and improves from pressure or lying on the back and also massage. Stop the medicine, the remedy, once there's a 50% improvement. Resume if needed. If no relief, consult a physician. Halitosis is bad breath. This can be caused by problems with the teeth, gums, indigestion, chronic respiratory illnesses. All of these should be sought and treated appropriately. The first remedy will be Arnica 30. This is good for people with a sore, beaten up feeling in their whole body. Met 30 is a gold derivative. It's useful for people with foul breath and older persons or adolescent girls. Often there will be restlessness and a very sad nature. Merksol 30 for foul breath with a bitter metallic taste in the mouth, excessive salivation, and intense thirst for large quantities of cold water, thick tongue with the imprint of the teeth on the front of the tongue. There may be nervous trembling and a profuse, offensive perspiration. Nitric acid 30 is good for patients with foul breath with spongy, bleeding gums, loose teeth, a red tongue, and red clean tongue with nervousness, general weakness, strong smelling urine, and dry, cracked skin. Nux vomica 30 is good for those with foul breath, swollen gums, ulcerated lips, tongue, and a sour taste in the mouth. These are folks who tend to be oversensitive by nature. They may have a frequent ineffective desire for stool and a tendency to catch colds. Pulse 30 is good for dry tongue, a sweetish taste in the mouth, and thirstlessness with a weeping nature. Ensure good oral hygiene with those with bad breath. Stop the remedy once there's a 50% improvement and resume if needed. If no relief, consult a physician. Burns can be difficult to treat homeopathically. Only the most superficial minor burns should be treated this way. Burns can be deep, they can fool you, they can also involve a large surface area. If so, they may require hospitalization. Arnica 200 should be given immediately to counter shock. Follow that with aconite 200 if the victim seems unduly frightened. Cantharis 30 or causticum 30 every 10 to 15 minutes will help with pain. You can stop it when there is considerable pain relief. Resume as necessary. Immersing the burned area in cold water can be very helpful in general. Adding a few drops of Urtica oryens or Hypericum tincture has been added can also help with the cold compresses with the above liquid to lessen the pain. Keeping air away from the burned skin will help relieve the pain as well. The patient should consume lots of fluids, water with sugar and salt, and dress the affected area with which the remedies have been added. Leave any blisters intact. Calf pain and cramps. These are common in early pregnancy and with swimmers. Camphora 30 will be the first remedy. This is good for folks with icy coldness of their legs. The person will feel hot internally and kick off their clothes. Cupromet 30 is a copper derivative. It's for cramps that are worse at night with a sweet taste in the mouth and excessive salivation. Cuprimars 30 is for folks who have cramps worse after midnight that's only relieved by getting out of bed, stretching, and standing like a Charlie horse. Magphos 30 for right calf evening cramps from 4 to 9, relieved by hot applications, massage, and hard pressure. Consult a physician if inadequate relief is obtained. Cataracts are thickenings of the lens of the eye. This generally happens with old age. However, it can happen after trauma in younger people as well. The first remedy would be Calcarb 30. This is good for folks with big dilated pupils, a tendency to contract colds, profuse perspiration, especially around the head during sleep. Craving for eggs and indigestible things may be present. Calc flower 30 for those with hardening of the lens. There may be some flickering and sparks in the vision, cracked skin of the palms and varicose veins, as well as stony hard glands of the body. Phos 30, everything seems to be covered by a mist or veil. The person sees better by shading their eyes with their hand. There may be some black floaters and green circles around light. While reading, letters may appear red. These folks often have an oversensitive nature and an irresistible craving for cold foods and drinks. Sil 30, for folks whose near vision is more affected, letters may get mixed up when reading. They may have recurrent styes and obstinate constipation and intolerance of cold weather. They desire to wear warm clothing even during the summer. The remedy may need to be continued for 2 to 3 months before any effects are evident. They can be continued for a while after there is some relief as well. Chickenpox. This is a very infectious viral disease with skin rashes that occur in successive crops. It starts off in the chest and the back, then spreads to the face, scalp, and limbs. There will be severe itching and thick crusting. Prevention of this can be obtained by giving 2 to 3 doses of Variolinum 200 or Malandirum 200 on successive days before the illness appears and after exposure. The first remedy for acute disease would be Aconite 30. This is good for folks with sudden onset of acute symptoms with fear, anguish, and restlessness. During the fever, they'll demand large amounts of cold water. Like Dulcamara and Mercurius, they like to be in the open air. Antimonia tart 30 for folks with rashes more in the genitals, anus, back, and painful crusts. There's a constant drowsiness with irresistible desire to sleep, and a craving for apples and citrus fruit. They dislike milk and desire to be in cool, open air, like with aconite. Dulcamara 30. These people will have rashes, especially on the face, scalp, and arms, without fever. Scratching the skin causes intense burning, relieved by a warm bath, but aggravated by a cold bath. There may be a milky whiteness of the urine. Calimere 6. For those with rashes and pustules with thick white contents converting to dry white scales. The tongue may have a gray-white coating. Mercurius Sol 30. Rashes and pustule formation with intense itching and pain, worse at night and from bed warmth. Discharge may be present from the pustules, and there may be some profuse perspiration. The breath will also have an offensive smell. There is an acute thirst for large amounts of cold water, like with alkanite and Dulcamara. Rustox 30. For rashes with swelling, burning, itching, excessive restlessness, itching and burning relieved by warm applications and baths, but there may be an aversion to cold air. Colitis. This is an inflammation of the large intestine. The initial remedy to try would be arsenic 30. This is good for abdominal pain, especially after 2 a.m., dark stools, offensive and loose stools with a cadaveric odor. There's a burning around the anus, great prostration before, during, and after stooling, extreme mental restlessness and fear. Lachesis 30. For ulcerative colitis with offensive bloody stools, excessive sensitivity to touch, and intolerance of light clothing and a jealous, suspicious nature. Myrcor 30. For copious, offensive, bloody, slimy stool, severe colicky abdominal pain before, during, and after stooling, intense thirst, and a moist, swollen tongue. Phos 30. For colitis with burning in the abdomen and around the anus. Stools may have bright red blood. The patient may have an oversensitive nature and be craving cold food and drinks. Stop the remedy when there is a 50% or better improvement. Resume if needed. Consult a physician if no or inadequate relief. For the common cold, a viral infection with sneezing and nasal discharge of watery to thick fluid blocking the nose, use of Aconite 30, cold from exposure to cold air. It's a sudden attack, sneezing, pain at the root of the nose and forehead, scanty nasal discharge, and blocked nostrils. The face may be red and hot. Often there's an unquenchable thirst and a desire for open air. There may be great restlessness and anxiety. Allium cepa 30, a cold from rainy weather, profuse watery discharge from the nose and eyes. It's acrid. It causes burning, the nasal discharge. The eyes discharge will be somewhat bland. The nose starts flowing in a warm room, stops in open air. There may be an accompanying irritating, painful cough which compels the person to grab their throat. Arsenic 30 is remedy good for colds from eating cold foods or sea bathing. There may be a thin, watery, acidic discharge from the nose. It lessens when indoors, worsens in open air, unlike aconite, allium, cepa, euphrasia, and pulsatilia. Belladonna 30, for sudden attacks of cold from exposure to summer sun, very much like Merck Sol, with fluent blood-stained discharge and a throbbing headache. The face may be red and hot, like with aconite, but the patient feels better in a warm room, unlike aconite. Euphrasia 30 is a remedy that's helpful for those with profuse bland discharge from the nose and a severe acrid burning tearing causing sore eyes. This may descend into the larynx, causing a daytime cough. They feel better in open air, like with aconite, allium cepa, and pulsatilia. Gelsemium 30 is good for colds that come on with an attack of cold, rainy weather that comes on gradually, may have symptoms of flu-like syndromes, dizziness, trembling, fever, body ache, dull headache relieved with urination. They feel better in open air, like with aconite, allium cepa, euphrasia, and pulsatilia. Natrimur is a remedy useful for those who have an attack of cold starting with violent sneezing followed by a fluent discharge resembling egg white. They feel better in open air and after cold bathing. They have a craving for salt and they may have a greasy face and a weeping disposition. Nox vomica 30, any attack of cold in cold, dry weather. The nose runs during the day and in open air, and it may be dry or blocked at night. They desire to be in a closed room with the body covered and frequent ineffective desiring for stools. Mercurocell 30 is good for attacks of cold and damp weather or from wandering in strong sunshine like belladonna. It begins with a lot of sneezing and an acrid, thick yet greenish-yellow pus-like nasal discharge, worse at night. There is usually intense thirst and a profuse, offensive perspiration. Pulsatilla 30 is good for colds after rich fatty food intake. The nasal discharge is thick, green-yellow, but bland and non-burning. There's a desire for open air, thirstlessness, and a mild weeping nature. Discontinue the remedy when 50% better. Resume if necessary. Constipation. Rare hard stools from sedentary, irregular modern life. Eumenia 30 for dry, inactive gut without desire to evacuate into large accumulations of stool. Soft stools even require straining for evacuation. It adheres like clay. They may crave indigestible things like chalk, charcoal, etc., and have an aversion to meat and potatoes. Bryonia 30 is good for those with extremely dry mucous membranes of the colon, no desire to defecate, but when defecation occurs, it's hard and dry as if burnt. There may be a headache worse with moving the head. There's generally thirst, but yet a dislike for milk and fried foods. Graphites 30, dry mucous membranes, hard stools, large lumps of very hard stool joined by slimy threads. It's relieved with hot milk. There's a dry, cracking skin and a sad, weepy disposition. Nux vomica 30. This is good for constipation resulting from excessive tea, coffee intake, and a sedentary life. There will be frequent ineffective desire to stool, only small evacuations without satisfaction. Constipation may alternate with diarrhea. There is an oversensitive diarrhea and a tendency to catch colds. Senna 30 is good for a severe constipation with abdominal pain, especially near the liver. Stools are hard and dark with flatulence and anorexia. Cilicia 30 for obstinate constipation. Stools that are retained for a very long time in the intestine. They pass only with great straining, partially expelled, then recede back, may require removal with fingers. There is intolerance for cold weather, and they may wear warm clothing in the summer. However, they like cold drinks and foods. Notes: high-fiber diet is good for constipation with plenty of water intake, exercise, and yoga or saunas regularly. Stop the medicine when there's a 50% improvement, resume as needed, and consult a physician if there is no improvement. Cough is a symptom that comes on when there is toxins or offending matter in the airways. This is not a disease of itself per se. Cough is protective. It's best to not suppress it any more than necessary, although some suppression is necessary for comfort in breathing. There are several treatments. Aconite 30 is good for a cough that's brought on by exposure to cold, dry air, such as with hepar, which is also used to treat this type of cough. It's a dry, painful cough that comes in short bouts. It's worse during expiration at night and from tobacco smoke. It lessens with exposure to open air. There may be associated restlessness, anguish, fear, and unquenchable thirst. Belladonna 30 is good to treat sudden violent attacks of dry cough that come in short bouts with redness to the face, a sense of constriction in the throat, worse when laying down, It disturbs the sleep. It's worse with tobacco smoke and lessens with warm drinks in a warm room. There is a dislike for open air, unlike with aconite-treated cough. Briona 30 is good for dry, painful cough of gradual onset in warm weather during the summer. The pain is in the throat and chest, worse from the slightest motion, so the patient will want to lie very, very still and hold their chest when coughing. The mouth and throat are excessively dry with acute thirst, like that found in cough treated with aconite and mercurius. There will also frequently be constipation. 30 is used to treat cough that is a violent, dry, whooping cough in young persons. There will be bouts of coughing following each other rapidly, causing breathlessness, blue skin, profuse sweating, and a sensation of a feather in the throat. This excites the cough, which is also worse when talking, singing, lying down, or at night. The person desires open air, such as with coughs treated with aconite and pulsatilia. Be careful that this is not pertussis or whooping cough, which can be quite serious. If this is not getting better fairly rapidly, please seek medical care. Heparsol 30 is used to treat a dry hoarse cough from exposure to cold, dry air with a sense of suffocation, perspiration, and a sensation of a splinter in the throat. The person is highly chilly, covered with warm clothes. Uncovering the body excites the cough, which is worse in the morning or from cold food or drink. Ipecacuanha 30 is used to treat dry cough with wheezing and rattling in chest, nausea and vomiting that does not relieve the nausea. There's long fits of coughing causing breathlessness and a blue face. The cough is worse in cold, dry weather. Improves with warmth. There's no thirst, like what happens with the coughs treated with pulsatilia. Cali Bitch 30. This is good for a violent summer cough that causes gagging and vomiting with tenacious, stringy yellow mucus. There's a wandering, painful spot in the chest that can be covered with a fingertip. This cough is generally worse in the morning while sitting, and it's relieved by lying down or by inhaling steam. Mercurius Sol 30 is used to treat a cough that comes in with damp weather, dry at night, but brings out green-yellow mucus during the day. It's worse at night, especially when lying on the right side, bringing a trembling of the whole body with profuse perspiration and an intense thirst for cold water. Phosphorus 30 is used to treat a hard, dry, painful cough that shakes the whole body and brings a sensation of tightness in the chest. Bouts of coughing are excited by talking, laughing, drinking, or lying on the left side, which is the reverse of mercurius-treated cough. They cough less after sleep and from cold drinks. It's common in tall, lean, narrow-chested, stoop-shouldered individuals who are oversensitive to the environment. Pulsatilia 30 is used to treat dry, painful cough at night that compels the person to sit upright. The cough is frequently productive of bitter yellow-green morning mucus. It's worse when lying on the left side, better in open air and by consuming cold drinks. These folks frequently have a mildly weepy nature, but no thirst with the cough. Remember, cough is a symptom. The cause of the cough should be sought and treated. Cough by itself is not a disease. Stop the remedy when the cough is about 50% better. You can resume if necessary. If there's no relief from the above, please consult a physician to further evaluate the cause and the prognosis for this cough. Diarrhea is basically loose stool, frequent stool. There are a few treatments. Argonite 30 is used for diarrhea from excessive sweets and sugar. There will frequently be watery greenish stool looking like chopped spinach and slimy. The abdomen may be filled with gas, belching, and flatus. Arsenic 30 is used to treat diarrhea from food poisoning with frequent small watery, dark, and offensive stools, especially between 12 and 2 o'clock in the morning, with rapid loss of strength, severe abdominal pain, and anal burning. There may be mental restlessness and fear associated with this diarrhea. Chamomile 30 is used to treat teeth cutting in children with hot stools, watery, greenish, offensive smell like rotten egg to the stool. The child is irritable and angry and stops crying only when carried in mother's arms. Cuprum Rs 30 is good to treat diarrhea with copious, dark, watery stools, with pain, rumbling in the abdomen causing dehydration, with cramps in the calf muscles. The urine may have a garlic odor to it. Gelsemium 30 is good for diarrhea from undue mental nervousness and apprehension before any important work is to be done. Frequently there will be trembling, dullness, dizziness, drowsiness, with no thirst. Ipecac 30 is good to treat diarrhea caused by eating indigestible rich foods, or rich foods in general. There will be loose stool with grass-green mucus and a persistent nausea. The tongue will be clean. There will not be any excessive thirst. Nux vomica 30 is good for diarrhea in persons leading a sedentary modern life but consuming too much in the line of rich foods and stimulants. This alternates with constipation between bouts of diarrhea, which are ineffective attempts to stool. Phos acid 30 is good for painless, non-debilitating diarrhea with watery, whitish stools. Podophyllum 30 is good to treat diarrhea from eating too many fruits in the summer. There may be a loud, gurgling, abdominal pain in the morning, followed by profuse, painless, foul-smelling, multicolored loose stools. There may be a headache between bouts of diarrhea. Veratrum alb 30 is good for diarrhea before and during menses preceded by cutting pain in the abdomen. Stools are profuse, watery, gushing, often with cramps in the hands and feet. There may be a cold sweat on the forehead. Each bout of diarrhea leaves the victim weak, exhausted, and on the verge of collapse. With diarrhea, you should always be careful to replace lost fluids and minerals. Consult a physician if no relief. Eczema is a dry, scaly allergic disorder with skin being red, itching, burning. There may be some vesicle formation and oozing. Skin patches may appear black, raised, and thickened. The treatment of this, arsenic 30, it's good for black eczematous patches with itching and burning pain that increases on scratching the skin but is relieved with heat. Patches exude a fluid filled with foul cadaveric smell. There may be severe mental agony and physical debility, which are other features of this condition. Graphites 30 is good for treating eczematous white patches on bends of the joints, groins, scalp, and behind the ears. Small vesicles may appear in patches which are readily burst to discharge a thin, sticky fluid. The skin itself appears unhealthy. It's rough, hard, dry, cracked, with frequent itching. It's worse at night and during menstrual periods. The patient may have a sad nature with a tendency to weep when hearing music. Petroleum 30 is good for eczema that has the scalp worse in the winter with violent itching, leading to the skin being scratched off. There may be yellow crusts that then form. The skin appears unhealthy, dry, cracked, with profuse, foul-smelling perspiration. These problems improve during the summertime. Serinium 30 is good for scalp eczema that also affects the cheeks and the ears. There may be violent itching, soreness, worse with bathing in warmth. Scratching leaves the skin hard and thickened. There may be minimal to absent perspiration. Unexplained chilliness and general debility requiring warm clothes in the summer may be present. Rust Tox 30 is good to treat eczema around the genitals, especially during monsoon or winter season. These yellow vesicles will itch and burn. The person will be restless and hardly able to keep still. Sulfur 30 is good to treat eczema with severe itching and burning, and aversion to bathing, intolerable hunger at 11 o'clock in the morning. They prefer to not stand up. Resist any temptation to apply soothing creams, lotions, and ointments to the skin. Stop the remedy when the patient is 50% better. Resume if needed. If no relief, please see a physician. Fever is an elevated body temperature. Again, this is a symptom, not a disease. The cause should be sought and treated appropriately. There are several treatments. Ferrum Phos 30 is good for fever that occurs at night or in the early morning with headache relieved by cold applications. There may be vomiting of undigested food. Pyrogen 30 is good for a rapidly rising fever with intense restlessness. There will be profuse hot perspiration, which does not cause the temperature to decrease. The bed will feel too hard. All discharges are horribly offensive. Repeat these doses every 15 minutes. Treat any obvious cause of fever. If there's no relief, please consult a physician. Flatulence is the passage of digestive gases formed in the intestines through the anus. Treatment for this includes Aloe 30, which is good for abdominal distension with gas, a feeling of fullness and pain, rumbling and gurgling. The victim fears stool will escape with the gas. The gas is very offensive and is also irritating to the anus. Argonite 30 is good for patients feeling abdominal pain that will burst due to gas, with much belching, which helps. They will be craving salts and sweets, which will disagree with them. Carbo-Veg 30 is good for with excessive gas in the upper abdomen. The patient feels that the abdomen will burst, the body is covered with cold sweat, belching and flatulence will provide some relief. China 30 is good for whole abdomen gas formation, causing pressure and pain. The victim tends to bend forward, which causes belching, which does not give much relief of the discomfort. Lycopodium 30 is good for severe gas in the lower abdomen, worse after 4 to 8 in the evening, with loud rumbling, constant sour belching and flatus, without relief of discomfort. The patient may feel hungry, but fills up with only a few morsels. They desire sweets and warm food and drinks. Nux M is good for abdominal pain where the abdomen is enormously distended, especially after meals. Even a small intake of food brings on the problem. Drowsiness and a lack of thirst may accompany this. If these remedies don't work, please consult a physician. Flu is a viral illness. It's characterized by sudden onset of fever, usually over 100 degrees, with headache, muscle aches, severe fatigue. There are a few treatments. Eupatorium perf 30 is good for fever, which onset is heralded by a chill and insatiable thirst. There may be soreness and pain all over as if beaten up. Profuse sweating is present, and that helps relieve the pain but not the headache. Gelsemium 30 is good for flu with fatigue, soreness, dull mind, dizziness, sleepiness, trembling, and no thirst. Influenzium 30, consider this when no other remedy is helping. Rustox 30 is good for sore body, restlessness. Everything the patient lies on is too hard. They're highly sensitive to open air. Their skin hurts. They feel better covered up. Their tongue tip may be bright red. Stop the remedy when they're about 50% improved. Resume if needed. Again, if no relief, please seek medical help. Forgetfulness, loss of memory. These are difficult to pinpoint as far as the cause is concerned, and we tend to forget things anyway that don't interest us. Anacardium 30 is good for extreme forgetfulness, sometimes even forgetting their own name. This can be paradoxical in nature. They may laugh at serious matters and become serious over laughable matters. They may be highly suspicious and malicious with an irresistible desire to swear and curse. Laccanum 30 is good for absent-minded folks who make purchases and walk away without paying for them. They make mistakes writing, omitting final letters and words. There may be a sense of loneliness and despair with visions of snakes. Nux machata 30 is good for folks who cannot recognize friends, objects, places. They have an indifference to everything. They may have a very labile, highly changeable mood with drowsiness, sleepiness, dryness, and no thirst. Sulfur 30 is good for forgetfulness and folks who cannot remember the names of people or find the proper word during conversation. They may have an unbearable hunger at 11 o'clock in the morning with burning on the body and discomfort while standing. If none of the above remedies help, please seek medical attention. Gallbladder disorders. Cholecystitis is an inflammation of the gallbladder. Cholelithiasis is stones in the gallbladder, often with nausea, belching, a sensation of fullness and pain in the right upper quadrant of the abdomen. Treatment, Berberis vulgaris 30, is good for short, sudden, stabbing pains that may radiate to the left shoulder. Worse when standing, moving, there may be dark urine and light stools, acholic urine and stools. Chelidonium majus 30 is good for almost constant pain in the liver and the lower tip of the shoulder blade with nausea and yellow-green bilious vomiting. The pain is less in the evening. The body may look yellow and jaundiced. The tongue may have a thick yellow coat with an imprint of the teeth. There may be a desire for hot drinks and food. China 30 is good for gallbladder problems with soreness and pain in the whole abdomen, with accumulation of gas causing the victim to bend forward, put pressure on the abdomen, Belching and passing gas, however, gives no relief. There may be an intense hunger, but they're unable to eat and have no desire to eat. Colocynth 30 is good for very severe agonizing pain in the abdomen, especially around 4 to 9 o'clock in the evening. The pain comes in spasms every few minutes. The victim bends forward, twists and turns. Discharge of gas will help the pain. Dioscorea 30 is good for violent colic and regular paroxysms if the intestine was being twisted by a powerful hand. It's worse on bending forward or lying down, less painful on standing erect or bending backward. Magphos 30 is good for severe, unbearable pain that comes in paroxysms. The clothes will be loosened, the patient will bend forward, pressing and massaging the abdomen. Heat will help, but discharge of gas does not seem to help. If the selected medication remedy does not help, please consult a physician. For non-painful problems, stop the medicine when the patient is about 50% improved. Gouty arthritis. Gout is a uric acid crystal disease caused by the affected joint becoming very hot, red, swollen, and painful. Frequently it's the big toe, but other small joints may be involved, such as the fingers, wrists, ankles, and toes. Joints that are small and get cool are those more distally located away from the center of the body. When the joint gets cool, the uric acid crystals precipitate, causing the gout attack. Treatment can include aconite 30, which is good for sudden violent attacks with restlessness and acute fear. The patient cannot bear the lightest touch. Even a sheet on the involved joint can be unbearable. Arnica 30 is good for when the affected joint develops a sore, beaten-up sensation. The patient cannot tolerate the joint being touched. Belladonna 30 is good for a joint that's red, swollen, hot, excruciatingly painful. Rest and cold will help this to feel better. Briona 30 is good for a red, swollen, painful joint. It's aggravated with the slightest motion. The patient sits still. This is worse with warmth. Weather, food, or drink will aggravate this. It's better by absolute rest. Firmly bandaging the joint, massaging or lying on the joint may also be helpful. Colchicum 30 is good for gout that moves from one joint to the other. Patient cannot bear the lightest touch. The pain is worse with motion, like with the Briona-treated patients. It's worse at night and in cold, damp weather. It's better with rest and dry heat. Eupatorium Pearl 30 is good for the left great toe gout attacks. It occurs every 3 to 7 days with headache and feelings of soreness and broken bones over the whole body. Pain is worse with motion, pressure, exposure to cold air. Lycopodium 30 is used to treat chronic gout, mainly on the right side of the body, with an aching pain, worse in the evenings around 4 to 8 at night, worse after inactivity, including awakening from sleep. Warmth and pressure will aggravate it, but it's better with cold applications and movement of the joint. Urtica urens 30 is good for gout from eating shellfish. It's useful in acute gout since it helps eliminate uric acid from the body. Violently itching skin rashes may be present. Sometimes the rash and pain will alternate. Pain will be worse to the touch, pressure, and cold applications. Stop the remedy when there's a 50% improvement. See a doctor if they're not improving. Headache comes from a variety of causes, each of which are treated differently. Remember, this is not a disease, this is a symptom. Headache with colds is treated with allium cepa or sticta. Headache from sinusitis, belladonna or kali beach. Headache from sun and heat, belladonna or glodonine can help. Headache from mental tension, nux vomica. Headache from constipation, aloe, briona, and nux vomica. Headache from eye strain is best treated with ruta. Headache from loss of sleep with nux vomica. Migraine headache does best with belladonna, iris, and nux vomica. Herpes zoster is also known as shingles. This is a viral illness characterized by skin vesicles along the course of a nerve with severe pain that may last after resolution of the skin changes. Treatments include arsenic 30. This is good for pus-filled dark vesicles with severe burning, itching that lessens with warm applications. The vesicles may discharge fluid with an offensive cadaveric odor. There may be restlessness, debility, and fear of death. Ranunculus 30 is good for herpes exposure, herpes to the chest. There will be bluish vesicles with intense itching, burning, worse on exposure to cold air or with touch. Rustox 30 is good for herpes to the genitals during monsoon or winter. Yellowish vesicles may be present with itching. The victim is restless, barely able to sit still. If the selected medication is not helpful, please consult a physician. Hoarseness, loss of voice. May also have a sore throat, difficulty swallowing, fever. Consult a doctor immediately if the pain in the throat becomes very severe. Aconite 30 is good for sudden attacks of hoarseness after exposure to cold air, with fever, dry, hard, suffocating cough, restlessness, anxiety, fear, severe thirst, and a desire for open air. Belladonna 30 is good for sudden, violent attacks after exposure to cold, with a painful, constricted throat, as if a foreign body were present. There may be a husky, hoarse voice with a barking cough that ends in sneezing. There may be an aversion to all drinks. Drosera 30 is good for overuse of the voice, a hoarse voice, a sensation of a feather in the voice box. Attacks of cough follow each other rapidly, causing shortness of breath, cough, and hoarseness that can actually get worse with hot water gargles. Heparsol 30 is good for exposure to dry, cold wind, as is aconite. The sensation of a splinter may be present in the throat, with a deep barking cough that is excited from the least uncovering of the body. It's worse with cold air and drinks, but improves with hot water gargling. Phosphorus 30 is good for laryngitis from voice abuse, overuse, dry cough, and a burning pain in the throat when talking or laughing. It is improved with cold water and food. Spongia 30 is used for hoarseness with dryness, burning, and constriction, as if to form a plug. It improves with warm food, drinks, and hot water gargles. Stop the remedy once there's 50% improvement. Resume as needed. Seek medical help if there's no further improvement. Impotence, inadequate erection of the penis. Agnes 30 can be used to treat this. This is for complete impotence of an unmarried person who have prematurely turned old from abuse of their sexual powers. There is no sexual power or desire left, the genital organ remaining cold, flaccid, and relaxed. Conium 30 is good for an increased desire but decreased power due to nervousness. The erection is imperfect and short-lived with premature ejaculation. Dribbling of prostatic fluid may occur even when passing stools. Gelsemium, loss of power from nervous anticipation or exhaustion, dragging pain, and a warm sweat of the scrotum. The slightest caress causes premature ejaculation even without erection. There may be dullness, dizziness, drowsiness, and a trembling of the body, but no thirst. Lycopodium 30, when there is sexual weakness from timidity and initial lack of confidence, impotence in young men from sexual excesses with great hunger, but only a few morsels will fill the stomach. There will be a desire for sweets and hot food and drinks. Nux vomica can be used with impotence from abuse of sexual powers and addictive stimulants. The loss of erection during sex with frequent ineffective desire for stool. Phosphorus 30 is good for an irresistible sexual desire nearing mania, but a feeble or absent erection. There is a constant discharge of thin, slimy fluid from the penis, craving of cold drinks and foods. Sulfur 30 is useful for a cold, relaxed organ, involuntary ejaculation, burning and itching of the genitals, especially when going to bed. There may be a sudden hunger at 11 o'clock in the morning where they cannot do without eating. If no remedy seems to help, please consult a physician. Indigestion. Check if most or any of the below remedies match your symptoms. Anacardium 30 for indigestion from sedentary habits. Eating in a hurry without proper chewing, extreme forgetfulness, and irresistible desire to curse and sweat. Carboveg 30 for when simple foods disagree, causing excessive gas in the upper abdomen. Belching and flatus frequently will relieve this. Lycopodium 30, lack of physical exercise with accumulation of gas in the lower abdomen, especially from 4 to 8 p.m., constant sour belching, often relieved by hot drinks with intense hunger, but yet only a few morsels will fill the stomach. There may be a craving for sweets and warm foods. Insect bites are another problem that can be treated with homeopathic remedies. They're good for burning, pain, itching, and redness at the site of the bite. Ledum 30 is good for puncture wounds. It's taken every 6 to 8 hours, works especially well if the site is benumbed and improves with cold applications. Apis is good for bee stings with burning pain, rosy rather than bright red, swelling and puffiness rather than a hard swelling. Give this every 6 to 8 hours as well. Cantharis 30 is good if the bite looks fiery red and hot. Tarantula cubensis 30 is good for bluish bites. Hypericium 30 is good for severe pain radiating upward from the sting. Arnica, calendula, hypericium, ledum, urticaria arans tinctures are used externally as 2 to 3 drops on a sterile gauze applied to the bite site, which will bring quick relief from burning and pain. Animal or snake bites require urgent skilled care in a hospital. These are much more severe than insect bites, need to be taken care of. Insomnia, mental tension, worry, excitement, adverse weather, tight clothing, uncomfortable mattress, caffeine ingestion, indigestion, gas trouble, aging, all these can interfere with sleep. It's best to treat any treatable causes first, of course. Treatments include arsenic 30, which is good for sleeplessness from anxiety and fear. Frequently they're unable to sleep from 12 to 2 in the morning and like to sleep with their head elevated in a semi-recumbent position. Coffee 30 for sleeplessness due to excitement, joyous ideas, light sleep with constant movement of the body, especially after 3 o'clock in the morning. Gelsemium 30 is good for sleeplessness due to physical exhaustion and/or excessive thinking. Frequently patients are drowsy but cannot fall asleep. They may be nervous, apprehensive in nature, and may have bodily trembling. Nux vomica 30 is good for those who abuse stimulants and alcohol but lack physical fatigue. Frequently there will be a sedentary lifestyle and they cannot sleep until after 3 a.m. They awaken feeling tired, irritable, and they have a sensitive nature. Frequently there has been an ineffective desire to move their bowels with aversion to cold air and climate. If these remedies do not help, please consult a physician. Involuntary urination. This is mainly for children, but sometimes adults need to see a physician for this as well. Benzoic acid 30 is good for delicate infants who have dribbling or with dribbling urine and old men with enlarged prostates. The urine is frequently dark brown, has a strong repulsive odor. Causticum 30 is good for involuntary loss of urine while laughing, coughing, sneezing, blowing the nose. Compare this to the use of pulsatilia. There's involuntary voiding in infants during the first sleep, like with that treated with sepia. It improves during the rainy season as worse in clear weather. Equistium 30, this is good for involuntary profuse urination in infants during bad dreams. The child may also have bladder pain, which is worse at the end of urination. Nux vomica 30, this is good for dribbling in young men after intoxicating drinks. Frequently there's urge, but with only a few drops coming out, this causes irritation and pain. It may be worse during the winter and summer. It seems to improve during the rainy season. Pulsatilia 30, this is good for involuntary urination during sleep or while coughing or passing flatus. Compare this to causticum. More likely after consumption of rich fatty foods. Sepia 30, involuntary urination in small girls during first sleep. Compare this to the use of causticum. The offensive urine stains with a bit of a red sediment to it. Silesia 30, involuntary voiding during no moon or full moon nights, bedwetting in children with intestinal worms. Sulfur 30 is good for involuntary passage of large quantities of urine at night by an untidy infant with dislike for bathing. This may be precipitated by weather changes but disappears during the summer. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. Resume if needed or not working after 10 doses. Kidney stones. These are very small stones that may pass unnoticed, but usually the larger stones and even the small ones may remain in the kidney or slowly pass down the ureters, causing pain in the loins and a propensity toward infection. Medium-sized stones may enter the ureter, passing to the bladder, causing great pain called renal colic, a wave-like stabbing pain. Berberis vulgaris 30 is good for left-sided renal colic with bubbling sore sensation in the left kidney region and loins. The urine may be bloody with a thick jelly-like sediment. The patient prefers to rest. Movements worsen the pain. Cantharis 30. This is used for pain in the bladder that radiates to different areas. There's a constant urge to void, but only a few drops of urine will pass. The patient may scream. Urine is bloody with thick jelly-like mucus. Coffee or cold water worsens the pain. Warm applications seem to help. Lycopodium 30. Right-sided colic with pain at the start of urination. No pain after voiding. There will be a sand-like red sediment. The colic will be worse from 4 to 8 o'clock in the evening. Ocimum 30. This is useful for right-sided pain with cramps in the loins, a musk-like odor, sand-like sediment. It works best for uric acid stones. Pereira brava 30 is good for constant urge to void. Flow after great straining only when the patient is on their knees with their head against the floor. Pain in the bladder, down the thighs during efforts to void. Sarsaparilla 30. This is for right-sided colic with pain down from the right kidney like lycopodium. There is a severe, unbearable pain at the end of voiding, just as the urine flow ends, like with berberis. The urine only dribbles while sitting, passing more frequently with standing. There's a sand-like white sediment. In the old westerns, we used to see cowboys go into the bar asking for sarsaparilla. The reason for this was that it was also thought to have some effects against sexually transmitted diseases. So they would drink their sarsaparilla before going upstairs to spend some time with the ladies in the saloon. Drink lots of water and cut down on high calcium foods when plagued by kidney stones or urinary stones of any type. Leukoderma. Indication: vitiligo or white patches on the skin due to pigment loss. Treated with R. sulfamflavum 30, which is used for 3 months. Monitor for signs of shrinking of the patch. Arsenic 30, selenium 30, and sepia 30 can also be helpful. If it fails, please consult a physician. Leukorrhea is a white discharge from the vagina. A certain amount of this is normal. However, if it is excessive or foul-smelling, it usually indicates that an infection is there that may require medical therapy. Sometimes a foreign body in the vagina can also cause this. Treatments include alumina 30 for a white-yellow discharge only during the day that's acrid, burning, copious enough to run all the way down to the heels. It stops for a while after a cold bath, then resumes. Cravings for indigestible things like chalk and obstinate constipation may be present. Even soft stools will require much straining. Borax 30 is useful to treat leukorrhea with a profuse, acrid, hot leukorrhea as if warm water were flowing from the vagina. It continues during the interval between 2 menstrual periods. Calcarea carb 30. This is useful for a milky, acrid leukorrhea that happens just before menses, causing itching, burning. It's also useful to treat young, fat women with profuse sour sweating, especially the head, enough to wet the pillow, and craving for eggs and indigestible things like alumina. Hydrastis 30 is good for foul-smelling, yellowish, thick, ropey discharge after menses with itching and burning of the genitals. It's so viscid as to hang from the vagina as if from strings. Creosote 30 is good for leukorrhea that occurs between menses like borax. It will be a yellowish, foul-smelling, corrosive discharge that stains and stiffens the other clothes like starch. It's worse in the winter. Pulsatilla 30 is a very thick, creamy, acrid discharge that corrodes the genitals, improves with cold applications. The women often will have a mild, weepy nature and have a desire for open air but no excessive thirst. Sepia 30 is good for a green-yellow discharge that comes on just before menses, like the calcarea carb, causing itching and soreness. There is a bearing down sensation in the pelvic region, forcing the lady to keep her legs crossed to prevent escape of the discharge from the vagina. The lady is weepy, like that treated with pulsatilia, but not mild. She is nervous, irritable, and indifferent. Thuja 30 is good for a thick, profuse, greenish pain in the left ovary and groin, scanty delayed menses. The vagina is extremely sensitive, preventing coitus. If none of the above help, seek medical care. Menopause. This includes hot flashes, mood swings, sweating, fatigue, headache, difficulty concentrating that occurs as the periods become more irregular. Treatments include aconite 30. This is good for sudden violent heat in the face with restlessness, anxiety, fear. The vagina is dry, hot, and sensitive. There is thirst and a desire for open air. Amyl nitrate is good for surging blood to the head and face with anxiety and palpitations. There may be a throbbing headache and a desire for open air, followed by profuse hot perspiration and exhaustion. The patient avoids mental or physical exertion, frequently stretching the limbs. Lachesis 30. There may be chills at night, flushing of the heat in the face on awakening. The face turns pale and blue, possibly with burning heat at the top of the head, followed by hot perspiration. She will loosen her clothes, desires fanning slowly from a distance. She is trembling, has a sensation of a ball in the genitals, and may be talkative, jealous, and suspicious in her disposition. Pulsatilla 30. This is good during the early stages of menopause with irregular menses and a weepy disposition. There is a chilliness inside the body and wandering pain in the head. There may be no thirst, but an acute craving for open air, as is treated with aconite and amyl nitrate. Sanguinera 30 is useful to treat periodic headaches in menopause that happen about once a week. It starts in the back of the head, ascends to the top of the head, settling over usually the right eye, may be relieved by sleep. There might be a circumscribed redness to the cheeks with burning in the palms and the soles. Sepia 30 is good for flushes of heat, worse in the morning and evening, with a bursting headache relieved by external pressure. There may be a bearing down sensation in the pelvic region, causing her to keep her legs crossed. She may be weepy and indifferent. Discontinue the remedy once there is 50% improvement. Resume if needed, and consult a physician if inadequate relief. This is nausea and vomiting during pregnancy, often worse in the first trimester. It can be severe enough to require hospitalization with IV fluids to treat the dehydration that results. Antimonium crudum 30 can help. This is useful for women with a giddiness, a sensation of abnormal fullness in the stomach after eating. There will be frequent, near-constant belching with a thick white coating on the tongue, alternating constipation and diarrhea, like would be treated with nux vomica. There may be an aversion to cold bathing. Arsenic 30 is good for excessive nausea and vomiting immediately after eating or drinking, leading to great exhaustion, causing undue fear, burning pain in the stomach, worse with cold drinks and food, relieved with hot drinks. Calculus 30 is good for vertigo with the least motion. She will prefer to lie down. There will be a sensation of weakness and hollowness in the abdomen with acute lethargy. It's worse if proper sleep is not maintained. Ipecacuanha 30 is good for persistent nausea and vomiting, unrelieved after vomiting with no thirst and a clean tongue. Nux vomica 30 is good for nausea and a stone-like pressure in the stomach after meals, leading to belief that vomiting will help. There is a desire for stimulants like tea and coffee, with a frequent ineffective desire to pass stools and void. There is a tendency to catch colds, compelling the lady to keep doors and windows closed and also to cover up even during the summer. Sepia 30 is good for nausea and vomiting from the smell or sight of food and flight like arsenic, especially in the morning. The sensation of emptiness in the stomach is relieved by eating. There is a bearing down in the pelvic area, which causes her to keep her legs crossed. You can stop the remedy once there's a 50% improvement, resume it if necessary, and if no improvement is noted, please see a physician to prevent dehydration. Myopia, nearsightedness. Near vision is good, distant vision is blurred. This happens frequently during youth and childhood. Treatment includes Visostigma 30, which is good for those with increasing myopia, small pupils, twitching eye muscles. The eyes may feel tired and irritated after little use. There may be soreness of the tongue tip and fluttering of the heart felt even into the throat. FOS 30 is good for tall, lean, narrow-chested persons who frequently will have black floaters before their eyes. Lights will be surrounded by green halos, and letters may appear red. There may be some puffiness around the eyes. These folks have an oversensitive nature and an irresistible desire for cold drinks and food, such as ice cream. Stop the remedy once there's a 50% improvement. Resume if necessary. See a physician if no further improvement. Myopia is a progressive illness. Acupressure and magnet therapy may also help more than the homeopathic remedies do. Nausea. This is a long-standing problem that bothers all of us from time to time. Use the remedy that closest fits the symptoms that you have. Treatments include arsenic 30 with nausea and vomiting from food poisoning, pressure and burning in the pit of the stomach. One cannot bear the smell or sight of food. Anything consumed is immediately vomited in a dark, offensive fluid. There may be severe prostration, exhaustion, and fear. Ipecac 30 is good for those with almost constant nausea unrelieved by vomiting, usually of a whitish, greenish, jelly-like substance, but no thirst. Nux vomica 30, nausea after meals, especially in the morning, with belief that improvement will occur after vomiting. Patients will avoid food despite the hunger. They may have an oversensitive nature. There will be a frequent but ineffective desire to pass stool. FOS 30 is good for nausea accompanied with a burning and all gonets in the stomach. They crave and consume cold food and drinks which help temporarily, but as soon as the food heats up in the stomach, it's vomited out. They may also have bright red bloody vomitus. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. See a doctor if there is no improvement. If there's a real problem going on, nausea may be a symptom of it, and further medical care should be sought. Osteoarthritis. Indication: this is a gradual, progressive deterioration of cartilage that occurs with age. It's the most common form of arthritis, characterized by pain and stiffness, often in the lower limb, worsens over years. There's the absence of real swelling, redness, or warmth. There may be a crackling noise, crepitus on motion of the joint. Formation of new bone and osteophytes is characteristic along the joint margin. Treatment: arnica 30. This is good for osteoarthritis after an injury with sore, beaten-up feeling of the joint. Everything in which a joint lies seems to be too hard. Pain is worse to touch and massage. Is tender. There may be some heat. There's no relief with rest. Bryonia 30. This is good for pain that's worst with the least bit of motion or exertion. It improves with absolute rest, stillness, as compared to rest tox. Heat or lying on the joint helps, which is different from with arnica. Pressing, massaging, or bandaging the joint also seems to help. Calc-FOS 30 is good for those lean, emaciated patients with numbness and a crawling sensation in the infected joint. This pain will be worse in damp, cold weather and better in hot, dry weather. Causticum 30 is good for joint deformities, muscle contractures, and pain worse in clear weather that improves during monsoon seasons. Rustox 30 works best with stiffness, pain, and an ache, like what arnica will work with. Worse after rest or inactivity. It gradually improves with walking, unlike that treated with Bryonia. It's worse in rainy weather, but better with dry heat. Stop the remedy once there is 50% improvement. If necessary, see a doctor if there's no further improvement. Painful heels. This is common in obese people. Treatments include Aranea diadema 30. This is for folks who have heel pain that's worse in damp weather and a sensation of swelling of the affected heel. Calc flower 30 is good for those who feel better with heat. It's useful for calcaneal spurs. Lycopodium 30 is good for right heel pain even at rest, as if the person had treaded on a pebble. It's worse around 4 to 8 in the evening, and also worse with warm and hot applications, but improves with walking and stretching. Stop the remedy when there is 50% improvement, and resume it if necessary. Seek medical help if no improvement is noted. Painful menstruation. Indication: this is for dysmenorrhea, which is quite common, with pain in the abdomen, back, thighs, breasts during the menstrual flow. There may also be associated muscle cramps, headache, lassitude, and irritability. Treatment includes belladonna 30, which is good for sudden, acute pain in the abdomen, thighs, breasts that occurs in spurts with sudden onset or offset. There may be severe backache, a strong bearing down sensation in the lower abdomen. Bleeding occurs early, is profuse, offensive, and bright red. For Chamomile 30, this is good for severe, unbearable labor-like cramping in the abdomen with radiation to the thighs, ultimately causing numbness. There may be passage of profuse, dark, clotted blood and an irritable, angry flow. The patient desires solitude and silence. There is an aversion to eating. It's improved with fasting. Cimicifuga 30. This is good for dysmenorrhea with delayed irregular menses, with labor-like pain causing a bearing down sensation or severe electric-like pain from the hip to hip and radiating into the front of the thighs. It's relieved by warm applications or eating, unlike what is relieved with chamomile. Menstrual blood is coagulated, foul-smelling. All disorders, including physical and mental, are worsened during the period. There is a sensation of a black cloud enveloping the head. Magphos 6X is used for severe stabbing, cramping abdominal pain that comes on just before menses. It changes places, like that treated with pulsatilia. The pain worsens after cold bathing or work. It's relieved by lying on the right side or bending double and by warm applications. The pain disappears as soon as the bleeding starts. Pulsatilia 30 is good for a history of menstrual problems since puberty with violent shifting, like with cimicifuga pain, during periods with stone-like heaviness in the abdomen. The pain is accompanied by a feeling of an internal chilliness, yet the lady craves open air. Pain is better with pressure and cold applications. Periods are late, bleeding is scanty. She frequently has a weepy nature, no thirst, like what happens with belladonna. There will be sometimes nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea during menses. Sepia 30. This is useful for menses that are painful with a sensation of fullness or a ball in the pelvic organs. There may be a strong bearing down sensation. She may prefer to keep her legs crossed, like with belladonna. The abdominal pain is usually better with exercise, work, pressure, warm and hot applications, and cold bathing. She may have an indifferent nature, a lady who is indifferent to everything. Xanthozylum 30. This is good for menses that arrive too early with pain in the back and lower abdomen extending to the left thigh. Blood is thick and almost black. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. Resume if necessary. Hemorrhoids, piles. These are varicose veins of the anorectal region producing a lot of pain and sometimes profuse bleeding. Asculus 30 can be helpful. This is for those who have a rectum that feels sore as if it was full of small sticks. Stool is hard, dry, difficult to evacuate. After defecation, there will be intense pain that may last for hours, like that treated with aloe and salt. It spreads upward to the back. The pain will be without bleeding, worse even when standing and walking. Aloe 30 is good for hemorrhoids that hang like a bunch of grapes from the anal canal. They are frequently bluish, bleed, and constantly sore, burning, and itching. They prevent sleep. Topical cold applications will help. Hymelis 30 is good for profusely bleeding hemorrhoids with burning, soreness, and a sensation of a throbbing anus. Nitric acid 30 is good for bleeding piles that protrude with every stool. There will be burning pain and a splinter-like sensation in the anus which lasts for hours after the stool. There may be extreme sensitiveness, nervousness, and trembling with severe prostration and strong smelling urine. Nux vomica 30 can be helpful for piles caused by living the modern life. There will be frequent ineffective urge to stool, constipation, and diarrhea alternating. This person may have a hypersensitive nature with a tendency to catch colds. Peonia 30 is good for severe pain and burning with itching in the anus with and after each stool, followed by a feeling of internal chilliness. Sol 30 is good for burning and painful piles with redness of the anus, a sudden intense hunger at 11 o'clock in the morning with a dislike for bathing and a craving for sweets. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. Resume if necessary and see a physician if no improvement is noted. Avoid constipation. Drink plenty of liquids and stay on a high-fiber diet. Pimples, acne. There are small boils in the skin in the face of adolescence due to hormonal changes. Antitart 30 can be helpful. These are for pimples that leave behind bluish-red marks, constant sleepiness, craving apples and sour foods. Calc-Sol 30 is good for pimples with yellowish scabs that burst. The wounds will heal slowly with burning and itching of the soles of the feet. Hepar-Sul 30 is good for splinter-like pain in the pimples, a sensitive face that can't bear the touch of a towel. When opening these, they have a discharge of thick pus smelling of old cheese. There may be an intolerance to cold weather and foods with a generally unhealthy appearing skin and profuse sour perspiration. Calibrom 30 is good for pimples with diminished sensation of the skin. Frequently, the person will be depressed, have sad spirits, and be sleepless. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. Maintain good facial and skin hygiene. Wash with soap and water 3 to 4 times a day, and take steam if necessary every week or two. Avoid facial creams and cosmetics. A well-balanced diet will also help. Psoriasis. This is silvery scales on reddish patches with intense burning. Treatments include arsenic 30. This is good for psoriasis with silvery scales with intense itching, burning that increases on scratching, is relieved with warm applications. Removal of the scales exposes blackish red areas with an offensive smell. There may be severe prostration and fear. Graphites 30 is good for patches on the scalp and the bends of the joints behind the ears. Removal of these areas exposes raw areas that ooze a thin, sticky fluid. The skin appears unhealthy, rough, hard, dry, cracked, with almost constant itching. It's worse at night and during menses. Frequently, these people will weep when listening to music. Cali-Rs 30, dry, cracked skin in the bends of the elbows and knees. Intolerable itching, worse when undressing, restlessness, and nervous. They may be anemic. Petroleum 30, scalp in winter is very itchy. There will be scales that are scratched off, exposing pink-red raw areas that are soon covered by thick yellowish crusts. The skin is unhealthy, dry, cracked, with profuse, offensive perspiration. This condition lessens during the dry summer weather. Sulfur 30 is good for those with severe itching, burning, and an aversion to washing and bathing. They also may have an intolerable hunger at 11 o'clock in the morning and an aversion to standing. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. Resume if necessary and see a doctor if there's no improvement. Pulled or strained muscle. Sudden strenuous activity without an adequate warm-up can cause muscle fibers to be stretched, sometimes partially torn, with pain, swelling, and spasm. Arnica 30 can be helpful for sore, bruised, beaten-up feeling given every hour or two. Rust Tox is also helpful. This is good for pain and stiffness. It's worse after rest and when beginning to move. It's better after moving around. It can also be tried if arnica is only partially helpful. My personal experience is people with blood type O tend to do better on the Rust Tox than on the arnica. Stop the remedy once there's a 50% improvement. Resume if necessary and see a physician for further care if there's no further improvement. Rheumatoid arthritis. This is a chronic, inflammatory, destructive, deforming arthritis that affects many joints. It's generally asymmetrical. It'll affect the same joint on both sides of the body. It involves the small joints of the hands and the feet. Treatments include Osteospicata 30. This is good for rheumatoid arthritis of the small joints of the fingers, toes, wrists, ankles, where even the mildest of exertion increases the pain and swelling. Bryonia 30 can help with red, swollen, hot joints that are exceedingly painful, aggravated with the slightest motion. The patient prefers to keep still. Hot weather in a warm room, food, and drink worsen the pain. They feel best by absolute rest, firmly bandaging the joint, and pressing, massaging, or lying on the affected joint. Calc-Phos 30 is good for pain, stiffness, numbness, and a crawling sensation in the affected joints that are worse in damp, cold weather, but better in dry, hot weather. Causticum 30 is good for advanced rheumatoid arthritis with the deformities of the joints and the fingers. The joints are worse in clear, fine weather, but better in damp, wet weather. Colchicum 30 is used to treat rheumatoid arthritis that moves from joint to joint. Compare this to pulsatilia. The pain can be so severe that the patient can't bear the lightest touch. It may be made worse by the slightest motion, like bryonia. At night in cold, damp weather will hurt it, but it's better with rest and with dry heat. Pulsatilia 30 is used to treat arthritis that moves from joint to joint, like colchicum. The pain may be accompanied by chilliness, aggravated by heat and rest, unlike colchicum, but better by cold, pressure, massage, lying on the affected joint, and by gentle continued motion. Rhododendron 30 is best for rheumatoid arthritis characterized by acute inflammatory swelling of the joints, wandering from one joint to another, like colchicum and pulsatilia. The pains worsen with rest and changes in weather, but are improved with motion and dry heat. Rustox 30 works best for stiffness, pain, and a feeling of soreness. It's worse after rest, but gradually diminishes on moving the joints. It will also be worse on dry and rainy weather, but improve with dry heat. 30 is used to treat arthritis with sore, beaten up feeling, giving rise to restlessness like Rustox. The pains worsen with rest, but are better with gentle movements, but not exertion. Warm application massage also help. The summary of indications and what the arthritis is improved by is as follows. If rest helps, try Actia spicata, bryonia, or colchicum. If moving and motion helps, pulsatilia, rhododendron, rustox, and ruta will be better. Arthritis improved by heat can be treated best with Calc-Phos, colchicum, rhododendron, rustox, and ruta. Arthritis improved by cold benefits from pulsatilia. Massage and pressure aiding the arthritis will improve best with bryonia, pulsatilia, and ruta. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. See a doctor if there is no improvement. Also, if they're not better after 10 doses, consult a physician at that point. Shoulder pain is another indication we can use homeopathic medicines remedies for, especially for frozen shoulder or periarthritis. Bryonia 30 can help with their severe pain worsened with slightest motion. The patient prefers to lie still. Heat will worsen, rest, massage, lying on the affected shoulder will all help. Chelidonium 30 is useful for those with right shoulder pain spreading to the right upper back, worse with movement and touching, but better with pressure and massage. Ferrum Met is useful for left shoulder pain that makes it hard to raise the arm. It's worse with rest, but relieved by gently moving the arm. Rustox 30 is helpful for those with stiffness, soreness, pain that's worst after rest and inactivity, diminishing on moving the shoulder or with dry heat. Sanguinaria 30 is useful for right frozen shoulder with burning in the palms and the soles. Pain may be worse with movement, but better with rest and with sleep. Syphilinum 30 is useful for frozen shoulder with stiffness pain that spreads into the arm bones. The pain is troublesome during the night, preventing sleep, increasing from heat, improving with cold, pouring weather. Stop the remedy when there is a 50% improvement. See a doctor if there is no improvement. Sinusitis. Sinuses are air-filled cavities in the skull that communicate with the nose by tiny openings. Infection can spread from one sinus to the other, causing throbbing pain in the forehead or cheeks that will be worse with stooping, moving the head, coughing. There may be a fever, there may be discharge from the sinuses as well. If no relief is noted within 2 days or with worsening, consult a physician. Heparosulf 30 can be helpful for right frontal sinusitis over the right eye. There will be a sharp, splinter-like pain in the forehead and at the root of the nose. This is worse with cold air, food, or drinks. The person may be chilly, requiring warm clothing. They may be overly sensitive to noise, touch, light, etc. Cali Beach 30 is good for sinusitis in hot weather during the summer. There may be a wandering pain in the forehead and a spot that could be covered with a fingertip. There could be a tough green-yellow stringy nasal discharge. Pain will be worse in the morning or from noise, better with steam inhalation or with lying down. Cali Iode 30, this is good for chronic sinusitis, a throbbing pain, burning in the nose and sinuses. It's worse at night or from steam inhalation, better on moving in open air. There may be a profuse, watery, hot discharge from the nose. Brachyurus Sol 30 is good for right-sided sinus pain with earache, toothache, dizziness, worse lying on the back but not relieved by inhaling steam. There may be a feeling of a band around the head with an acrid, annoying, thick, greenish-yellow, pus-like discharge from the nose. It may be worse at night. There may be intense thirst and offensive perspiration. Pulsatilia 30 is good for pain that shifts from one part of the head to another, like Cali Birch. The pain may be worse from steam inhalation, relieved by pressure, cold applications, or moving in open air. There may be a profuse, thick, green-yellow, bland discharge from the nose. The patient may have a mild, weepy nature, but no thirst. Cilicia 30 is good for a headache that starts at the back of the head and settles above the right eye and right frontal sinus. It's worse with movements, stooping, noise, cold air, better with pressure, tying a tight band around the head, and with urination. There may be great chilliness, like with that treated by Heparosulf. The person wears warm clothes even during the summer. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. Resume if needed. See a physician if no further improvement is noted. Sore throat, a painful swollen throat with difficulty swallowing. Treatments include aconite 30 for sudden severe pain, high fever, anxiety, fear, and a sense of being very thirsty. Apis 30 is good for fiery red throat, burning, stinging pain the victim cannot tolerate, clothes around the neck, but there's no thirst. Barletta Carb 30 is good for sore throat from cold drinks, a sensation of a plug in the throat. The food pipe contracts as soon as food enters, causing gagging and choking with a tendency to catch colds easily. Belladonna 30 is useful for sudden acute sore throat with burning pain and high fever. There may be a constant desire to swallow saliva with a rush of blood to the head, causing a flushed face and throbbing carotid arteries. Mersol 30 is good for severe sore throat, a bluish-red tongue, large, moist imprint of teeth on the tongue, profuse, offensive perspiration, a trembling body, and extreme thirst. Phytolacca is good to treat a dark red, ash-colored appearance of the throat. Burning pain as if from coal shooting to the ears when trying to swallow. Pain is worse with hot fluids and better with cold drinks. Stop the remedy when there is a 50% improvement. Resume if needed. See a doctor if there's no improvement. All saltwater gargles may help. Sprained joints. These are sudden twists and turns that may wrench, disrupt, or damage ligaments and tendons around the joint, followed by an accumulation of fluid into the joint with swelling and pain. Commonly affected joints include the ankle, wrist, fingers, and knee. Arnica 200 can be very helpful for this. It immediately controls the shock and bleeding into the tissues. If after a day without further improvement, add to that Ruta graveolens 30, 4 times a day to promote healing. But if Ruta is inadequate, then Symphytum 30 can also help. This is derived from the comfrey plant that was called knitbone by ancient physicians. If it's inadequate and pain and stiffness are still not getting better, then consider Roostox 30 given every 6 to 8 hours. Also, Bryonia 30 can help when the pain is worse with the least movement and better with absolute rest. Ledum 30 is useful when there's so much swelling that the affected joint is numb and cold, yet feels better with cold applications. Stop the remedy when there's 50% improvement. Resume if needed. If no improvement, see a doctor. And prolonged continuation of that remedy will kind of defeat the purpose. Styes. These are small boils affecting the root of an eyelash with hard swelling of the lid margin and pain. Pulsatilla 30 can be helpful. The upper lid will be burning, itching. There may be a discharge of profuse, thick yellow mucus from the eyelash area. The patient may have a weeping nature but not be thirsty. Silicia 30 is useful when there is a hastening resolution of the stye by bursting it open. There may be a feeling of chill, warm clothes worn during the summer, and obstinate constipation, and a desire for cold food and drinks. Staphylococcus aureus 30 is good for recurrent styes leaving behind hard nodes. It can be tried if pulsatilla fails. Sol 30 is good medicine to start with, especially for recurrent styes and unhealthy skin, heat and burning in the eyes, and a disinclination to stand, and acute unbearable hunger at 11 o'clock in the morning. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. Practice good eye hygiene. Washing along the eyelashes a few times a day with gentle soap and water can also be helpful. Tinnitus, ringing in the ears. This is an annoying sound in the ears when there is nothing causing a noise and you're the only person that can hear it. It can be treated with China 30. Tinnitus worsens if the ear is lightly touched. It's diminished with hard pressure to the ear. There may be painless diarrhea at night. Kali iode 30 can be helpful if the noise is ringing with a boring pain and the ear feels better when exposed to open air. Salicylic acid 30 if there's a roaring and ringing in the ear with deafness and dizziness, frequent falls mainly to the left side. Stop the remedy when there is a 50% improvement. Seek medical help if there is no further improvement. Toothache. Just pain in the teeth for whatever reason can improve with aconite 30. This is good for sudden, severe toothache, worse with cold drinks and food. The victim may be restless and frightened. Belladonna 30 can be helpful for severe toothache on the right side with surges of blood to the face and burning, throbbing pain. Chamomile 30 can be helpful for an unbearable toothache that has a numb part of the jaw that's affected. The pain may be worse on eating anything hot or warm applications. Coffee 30 can be helpful with severe pain, with nervousness, agitation, preventing sleep. Pain lessens temporarily with ice in the mouth. Mercurius Sol 30 can be helpful for those with loose, painful teeth with spongy, bleeding gums. There may be a sweetish taste, excessive saliva, the tongue is thick and moist, showing the imprint of the teeth. Hot foods and applications worsen this. They may be thirsty. Plantago Q is useful for severe pain radiating to the ear or the eye that lessens while eating. If the pain is not improving after 10 doses, see a dentist. Travel sickness. This is nausea, dizziness, vomiting when traveling in a ship or vehicle. Motion sickness can be caused also by ear disease, head injuries, sudden changes in blood pressure, or blood supply to the brain. Treatments include Cocculus 30, which is good for sensation of emptiness and pain in the back of the head. They can't lay back. They have nausea and vomiting with a metallic taste and trembling. Nux vomica 30 can be helpful. For travel in strong sunshine, the brain feels like it's training around in circles. The pain may be in the front of the head with the desire to press it against something. In the morning, the nausea is worse, vomiting with much retching. The stomach may be sensitive to pressure, and there may be frequent ineffective desires to stool. Petroleum 30 can be helpful, but if the patient is better lying down but worse on rising, there's a feeling of cold breeze blowing on the head. When the back of the head feels heavy, headache, it's better by pressing on the temples. There may be nausea with salivation. Tobacum 30, person keeps their eyes closed. There's constant nausea, a sinking feeling in the pit of the stomach, and the sensation of a band around the head. There may be vomiting of foul-smelling substance. Stop the remedy when there's 50% improvement. Start taking this medication, these remedies, before travel. Use as needed while traveling every 15 minutes or so until the attack abates. wounds will be our final topic. Homeopathic indications for treatment of wounds include the fact that these remedies can be given internally and externally. They're often given both ways depending on the wound. Homeopathic remedies are for less serious wounds. More serious wounds may have injured deeper structures and require more thorough evaluation. Typical wounds treated homeopathically include burns, punctures, lacerations, which are irregular tears of the skin, incisions or sharp cuts to the skin, and abrasions or scrapes. The dressings should be applied to clean wounds. After cleaning with soap and water, an appropriate homeopathic remedy may be applied. These are applied by moistening with a suitable homeopathic solution, put on a dressing, and left undisturbed for a few days without changing the dressing, even if it looks a bit stained or has an odor. Removing the dressing prematurely will disrupt the healing tissues. Tinctures are made by putting 10 drops of a remedy in a cup of boiled and then cooled water. Treatments include topical therapy such as Calendula officinalis. This can be topically applied. It's got antiseptic properties. Hypericum lotion relieves pain of injured nerves. Ledum lotion is helpful for punctures and sprains, especially if the part remains cold and numb. Avoid arnica topically. It's an irritant that should not be applied to broken skin. Internal treatment can be given systemically with Arnica 200 given immediately by mouth to counteract the shock of the trauma. Hepar sulf 30 is useful, given 3 times a day to reduce inflammation, redness, heat, swelling, and pain. Candula 30 is good for abrasions, incisions, and lacerations, given 3 times a day for a few days. Hypericum 30, this is useful for severe pain and incisional wounds. It's also helpful for puncture wounds without a numb, cold pain shooting upwards. Staphylococcus aureus 30 is good for incisional wounds and wounds with severe pain. Either this or Hypericum can be used. Ledum 30 is useful for puncture wounds. Stop the remedy once there is a 50% improvement. Resume if needed, and if there's no further improvement, seek medical help.